It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission for December 19, 2022 to order. We're going to do roll call. Commissioner Varnell.
Here.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Present.
Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Wynn.
Here.
Commissioner George.
Yep.
And Commissioner Cornett.
Here.
Can I have a motion concerning the approval of the October 17, 2022 Traffic and Transportation Commission meeting minutes?
Motion to approve from Varnell.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Varnell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner George. Any talk on this item? We have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 17, 2022 Traffic and Transportation meeting minutes by Commissioner Varnell, seconded by Commissioner George. And your votes, please. Do you have the score coming up also? No, it just says pass. It doesn't have the score.
8-0.
Score in. Oh, there it is. It's on mine. Okay. So the item has passed with all in favor. We go on now to item 3, the reports from traffic management in the councilor's office. Mr. Chai, do you have anything, sir?
Okay, as of this month, we've enabled leading pedestrian intervals for PED signals at 230 intersections. And aside from that, you've got our administrative report on yield and parking restrictions. Happy to answer any questions that you might have about them.
All right. Anybody got anything for the staff? Okay. Counselor, do you have anything, sir? No. Okay, thank you. We go on now to item 4, the consent docket. Is there anybody here to speak against the items on the consent docket? Okay, staff, do you have any input on it?
No, the only thing I would say is these traffic controls were done, and they were approved as part of the construction documents for the Lower Park project, and because they require the commission's approval, ultimately they're being presented as a consent item.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning the consent docket? Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
By Commissioner Schuline and seconded by Commissioner Hale. Okay. Any discussion on the consent docket? This is a good use of that thing that we changed a few years ago where there's a emergency thing and you just say yes and then we just fix it later.
Exactly. Well, it's a use of the city manager's authorization to enable traffic controls to meet special conditions or emergency situations. And since the stop signs needed to be up and in place prior to the opening of the park, we just did it administratively and we're bringing it back through the normal process. So yes, it is.
All right. Do we have any talk? Okay, we're ready to vote on the consent docket. Recommended approval by Commissioner Schuline and seconded by Commissioner Hale. Item has passed with all in favor. There it is. Thank you. We go on now to item 5, 5A, NORLAD. 4 items. Item 1, no vehicles in excess of 2 axles restriction on North St. Clair Avenue between Northwest 36th Street and Northwest 38th Street. Item 2, no vehicles in excess of 2 axis restriction on North Tacoma Street between Northwest 36th Street and Northwest 38th Street. Item 3, no vehicles in excess of 2 axes restriction on North Newport Avenue between Northwest 36th Street and Northwest 38th Street. And sub 4, no vehicles in excess of 2 axis restriction on North Cromwell Avenue between Northwest 36th Street and Northwest 38th Street. Do we have somebody that wants to speak on this item here? Sir, if you could please come on up to the microphone, if I can have your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, my name's Noah Ladd. I live at 3808 Newport. I've lived there for over 30 years. The reason I asked for this axle restriction is on 39th Street, there's a used car lot, and when they bring in their semi loads of cars, a lot of them, it's a one-way, kind of. You come in off St. Clair, make a U, make a left, and you get down there to Newport, and you can only go south on Newport, either go back on 38 to get to St. Clair to get back to the highway, or they come down Newport, or if they're going the other way, they come in Newport or Cromwell to go into 39th. And I just asked for axle restrictions for 2 axles. That's all I asked.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that wants to speak on item 5A? Okay, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. One thing I'll point out is if you look at the traffic volumes that appear on pages 1 and 2 of your report, you'll see that St. Clair Avenue has got by far and away the highest average daily traffic volume. It runs just over 3,400 vehicles per day, whereas its flanking streets run 200 vehicles per day or less. According to the Oklahoma City Municipal Code, Section 32526, when designated by the commission and signs are erected, no person shall operate or park any vehicle which has more than 2 axles upon any street so designated, provided, however, the vehicles with more than 2 axles may be operated or parked on such streets for the purpose of delivering or picking up materials or merchandise. In this particular case, the axle restriction that Mr. Ladd is requesting is to deter the use of primarily St. Clair Avenue as a route for car haulers that are on their way to the auto dealership that's on Northwest 39th Street frontage road. So action on this item will be at the discretion of the commission.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
Move for approval.
Motion to approve item 5A by Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have a second?
Second by Varnell.
Second by Commissioner Varnell. Do we have any talk on item 5A?
I've got a question. If you're allowed to deliver through that street, they're delivering cars at the end of the block, so it won't restrict them delivering cars to the car lot?
That are headed that direction. The signs that are posted are regulatory in nature. They'll read no vehicles in excess of 2 axles. Now, the way the codes are written, if you've got business in the area for deliveries, you can use a street like that. The streets like Tacoma, Newport, and Cromwell, those streets really aren't suitable for car haulers. St. Clair, possibly. However, most deliveries, the way this actual restriction is set up, it would deter most drivers from using the residential streets. They would enter from Northwest 39th Street. They would use the frontage road. They can circle back using 38th and head back out. There's nothing that would absolutely prohibit them. However, it's basically a means of deterrence.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, any other talk on item 5A? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A by Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner. Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A by Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Can I have a votes, please? Item has passed. Would all in favor? All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, we go on now to item 5B, Cecil Elliott. To consider no vehicles in excess of 2 axis restriction on Northwest 33rd Street between North Portland Avenue and North Roth Avenue. Do you have somebody here to speak on this item? Okay, staff, do we have input?
This is essentially an identical request. In this particular case, I do not believe it's so much the truck traffic that's on the road. I think in Mr. Elliott's letter, he's more concerned about the effects that occur when semi-tractor trailers are parked and left overnight in residential areas. I mean, that particular action is already not allowable under the zoning codes. So, because in section in the zoning chapter 59, section 10450, that particular section prohibits commercial vehicle parking in neighborhoods. And commercial vehicle parking would be of the type that's shown on page 5 in this particular report. Because that, in this particular image, this was provided by Mr. Elliott, showing a tractor trailer that was left and parked over within the neighborhood. I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have on the application.
All right, thank you. Do you have a motion concerning item 5B?
Move for approval.
We have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second came.
Varnell.
A second from Varnell. Do we have any talk on item 5B? Okay, so we have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Littlefield, second by Commissioner Varnell. Votes, please. Item has passed with all in favor. Okay, we go to item 5C, Timothy Johnson, P.E., President Johnson and Associates. Two sub-items. One, establish 60-degree angle parking within a proposed setback parking area east of the east curb line of Northwestern Avenue. And sub-2, a reserved parking space for the physically disabled within the proposed setback area of the south side of Northwest 68th Street from approximately 300 feet east to 328 feet east of the east curb line of Northwestern Avenue. Do we have anybody here to speak on item 5C? Sir, if I can have your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Caleb Morgan, Johnson Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. We appreciate you hearing this item today. And what we're proposing is 60-degree angled on-street parking adjacent to an existing facility that's going to be renovated, and a future pad for a future facility. And in addition to that, 1 ADA parking space. We appreciate staff working with us on this one, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have anybody else wanting to speak on item 5C? Okay, staff, please.
All right, you've got our comments before you. In this particular case, Northwest 68th Street between Western and Classen is carrying a daily traffic volume of about 420 vehicles per day. The angle parking as proposed on the south side of the street will provide sufficient perpendicular depth for parked vehicles to remain outside the limits of the eastbound travel lane on 68th Street and enable drivers to maneuver in and out of the proposed lay-by with minimal encroachment into the westbound travel lane. So based on the 421 vehicle per day traffic volume on Northwest 68th Street, with the highest hourly traffic volume of 20 vehicles, and the absence of vehicles parked along the north side of the road opposite the proposed parking area, it's not anticipated the introduction of angle parking on the south side of the road will significantly affect traffic movement on the roadway. And at this time, the applicant has not requested any parking controls to regulate the use of the proposed structured parking spaces. So I'm happy to answer any other questions. Action on this item will be at the discretion of the commission.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
In an effort to share some information and come up with the best solution here, I move for denial.
Okay, we have a motion to deny item 5C by Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Hale. Yes, sir.
Let's visit. This is in conjunction with PUD 1336, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I've done a lot of work studying this. It's really interesting and unique and something very new to me. I've never seen this before. In the master design statement, the Planning Commission writes in language, any parking approved through the Oklahoma City Traffic Commission in conjunction with this project may count toward the required parking of the SPUD. And I visited with Janice Powers about this. You know, why did they make that decision? Because it's unique. And her response to me was that they really had trouble trying to figure out how to accommodate the parking. And you know, the upside effort, which I appreciate very much, is preserving the structure and finding a use for it and finding a way to get people to and from the use. There's a gentleman in the Paseo Neighborhood Association by the name of, give me a second, Samuel Hooker, and his role in their board is traffic and parking. And he visited with me about this application, and one of the concerns that the neighborhood has that I hold as well is the proximity of this public parking to Northwest 23rd Street. And since the application was approved at the Planning Commission and Council, there's been kind of a reinvention of the cottages area on 23rd Street, and it's anticipated that that's going to draw a lot more people. And what the neighborhood's concern is that
Mr.
those
Littlefield? Could you please look at what item that we're talking about today?
Oh, am I on the wrong one?
I think you might
Yeah.
be talking about the next
You
one.
should have shut me up long ago.
Well, but it's so nice to hear your voice.
So it
Keep
sounds,
that in mind.
Okay.
I misread the item. I apologize.
Right, we're on 5C right now.
Okay, let's,
think- So,
I promise I won't repeat myself.
so would you like to change your motion?
Yes, I would like to change my motion. I move for approval of 5C.
5C, and Mr. Hill agrees on the second.
It's Christmas. Am I off or on?
Okay, so as of right now, we have a motion to approve 5C by Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Any talk on this item? Okay?
I think that one looks great.
All right, so we have a motion to approve 5C by Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Hale, and we're ready to vote, ma'am.
There we go.
Okay, item 5C has passed with all in favor. Okay, we now go to item 5D. 5D, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President Johnson Associates. Two sub-items. Sub-item 1, establish 60-degree angle parking within a proposed setback parking area on the east side of North Chartel Avenue from approximately 30 feet south to 165 feet south of the south curb line of Northwest 25th Street. And 2, a reserved parking space for the physically disabled within the proposed setback area on the east side of North Chartel Avenue from approximately 30 feet south to 60 feet south of the south curb line of Northwest 25th Street. Sir, are you ready to talk on this item? We already have your information.
on this item, which I guess is going to be some controversy on it, but we have some 60-degree angled parking adjacent to an apartment development. It's a very narrow lot, and a sidewalk that goes along with it, and an easement to cover the sidewalk and the parking, and including an ADA spot. Like was mentioned previously, there's not much room on this site for parking, and that's why they're having to do this. I guess the issue would be, if we don't allow the parking, then you have a problem with developing the site altogether, which, you know, nobody wants to have stuff not develop or whatever. So, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, anybody else wanted to speak on item 5D? Okay, staff input?
All right, you've got a report before you. In this particular case, the proposed 60-degree angle parking area on the east side of the street does provide sufficient perpendicular depth for parked vehicles to remain outside the limits of the northbound lane of Chartel Avenue and allow drivers to maneuver in and out of the proposed lay-by with minimal encroachment into the southbound lane. In Bike Walk OKC, a Tier 2 bicycle facility, which is just traditional bicycle lanes, is proposed on North Chartel Avenue from Northwest 18th Street to Northwest 30th. In the images you can see on page 11 of the staff report, you'll see that the bike lanes thus far have been marked. That project is still under construction. The average daily traffic volume on Chartel is 1,749 vehicles per day, with the highest hourly volume running around 200 vehicles per day, or per hour, excuse me. They've also requested, in conformance with federal requirements, one reserved parking space for the physically disabled, and at this time they have not made any request for parking controls to regulate these angle parking spaces. Just to remind the commission, it was about a year ago when the commission considered an ordinance that would prohibit parking in bike lanes. So bike lanes are being marked on both the east and the west sides of Chartel, so there will not be any parking on the west side of the street opposite this particular lay-by. Aside from that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on the application.
So just what, the information you brought up on the bike lanes, by doing parking on one side, we will say that we will not do parking on the other, so we do have a bike lane. Is that what you're saying?
The on-street bike lanes would prohibit well, they would prohibit parallel parking. In this particular case, the parking area is a lay-by which is set basically outside the main roadway limits, so it does not encroach into the bike lane. So in this particular case, you can accommodate parking adjacent to the bike lane because the bike lane can still be maintained. But on the west side of the street, where it's just where the only manner in which you could park would be parallel, you would not be allowed to park because of the bike lane.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
For the sake of information and discussion. To find a solution for denial.
Okay, we have a motion to disapprove item 5D by Commissioner Littlefield. And then do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Hale to disapprove. All right, sir, go. ...
I won't repeat myself. And I apologize to everybody. That's the first time in years that I've ever done that. It must have been the name being duplicated. The response from the neighborhood was their concern with the reinvention of the cottages area that's attracting more patrons that are going to be looking for places to park. And their concern is twofold. One concern is that could be potentially parking spaces for 44 people to use to walk a block and a half to participate on events on 23rd Street. The other concern is because of that, those parking spaces may not serve your goal because they're public parking spaces. And that's also my concern. And one of the options that kind of ran through my head, and it's a really good example, there was an application on 38th Street, Northwest 38th in Classen a few years ago called the Bradford House. And initial conversations with them prior to anything being filed at planning, they were trying to do the same thing. It was very similar circumstances, very similar amount of parking spaces. And the suggestion was made, can we not flip them over onto the property? So what ends up happening is a curb, an immediate sidewalk, and then probably would require like revocable permit or something like that to get those parking spaces on the site where they could then be designated for the purposes of the uses defined in the SPUD and relieve the neighborhood of the concern. One of my concerns also is it's an unusual spot in a neighborhood environment. When you consider there's a cemetery on one side and then there's a neighborhood on the other, it's residential primarily. After you get past the good part of up to 24th Street, it's my experience in my neighborhood and other places in Ward 2 where that kind of on-street angled parking in a neighborhood environment doesn't seem right. And it would, in this case, in my concern, set some kind of a precedent for Walker, for the balance of Chartel over the future. Is there any possibility of rethinking how to pick up these parking spaces without having to use on-street angled parking?
Well, and those are good concerns, and we'd like to continue the item so that we can address those concerns. So there's maybe different ways to try to work that out, but we'll just have to kind of go back to the drawing board. I know we've tried on sites this shape to lay out more parking on the site, and it has always been a problem. The certain width that you just can't get, 2 rows of parking in there, and you're wasting a lot of space for only a few parking spots. So that's our biggest concern. But we'd like to address all those concerns and continue the item so that we can address those.
It is, I read it, and it wasn't clear to me when I read it, and I listened to what Stuart had to say. The current condition of parking on that section of Chartel is what?
Well, in the case history, there's
Is there,
there
is there,
parking controls. Okay, currently, there's no parking anytime on the west side of Chartel, and no parking Monday through Friday on the east side of Chartel, starting at 25th Street and extending 175 feet to the south. And that particular control was set up years ago when that church was actively being used. And that's the current status of parking regulations in the area. The addition of the bike lanes will prohibit parking automatically,
On the west side only, is that right?
both sides.
Both
Well, except for it prohibits on-street parking.
Right,
Yours
so
is basically the
parallel-
parking lay-by. So
Right.
if you had constructed a parallel lay-by outside the limits of the bike lane, parking would still be allowed.
Right.
it just seems to me to give it more thought. I feel strongly about that.
Okay.
And I very much respect the development. I've read the uses. Some of those uses are kind of new to me. I had to look them up and refresh myself what those uses are. The only, somewhere in there, I think in that tract or one of the other tracts, it discusses a mixed use, which could have commercial uses. I understand that. The other uses to me seem more like internal uses. The other uses that are permitted would be using that structure primarily for the residents and the folks that live in and participate within it. So I'd like to be very careful before putting public on-street parking in front of this site, for there's a little more clarity there with what uses might happen, and maybe we could find some other place to get them. I don't know how to proceed from here with my motion.
Well, you would change your motion to, based upon the input of the applicant, to move the item
To
to the
continue?
next, to the next meeting.
You good with that?
Yep.
I'd change my motion from denial to a continuance, a 30-day continuance.
Well, it'll be
To the
February.
Oh,
next
it'd have to
meeting.
be, yeah,
To the
no.
next meeting,
To the next meeting,
Right.
which could be,
Right.
February or.
you good with that?
Well, we'll take what we can get.
Okay.
We'd like approval, but
Okay.
if that's all we can get, that's what we'll take.
That's my motion.
Okay, Mr. Hale?
I'll change my second to correspond with the motion.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we have a motion to continue item 5D from Commissioner Littlefield and seconded by Commissioner Hale. Do we have any talk on the item before we move on? Okay, we're ready to vote on item 5D to continue. It's probably me. There it is, yep. I was on the wrong button. Okay, item has passed. It is deferred to the February meeting, or to the next meeting. Okay, we go on now to item 5E, Larry Benson, all-way stop control at South Anderson Road and Southeast 32nd Street. Do we have anybody here to speak on this item? Sir, if you come up to the center mic, name and your address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Larry Benson. My address is 3701 Bassinger Street in Oklahoma City. I'm fairly new to the area, well, to Oklahoma City part there. I've lived there for 13 months. But in moving there with pulling a trailer back and forth out of that street is very hazardous, to say that at the very least. Anyway, what I'm asking is I'm humbly respecting to request a three-way stop sign be put in at the corner or at the intersection of Southeast 32nd and Anderson. We've had several close calls there on Anderson, and especially hazardous during rush hour because people do not want to obey the speed limit there.
And so you're taking your life at your own hand trying to get out of there, especially if you're pulling a trailer. I do have letters from a few from my neighbors. I'd like to read at least one of them if I could. If I got time, I think. It's just short. It says, "To whom it may concern, my name is David Norton. I live at 3600 Bassinger, Oklahoma City, 73150. This letter is a note to address the traffic issues at 32nd and Anderson Road. This intersection is only the access to the neighborhood consisting of Southeast 32nd and two dead-end spurs, one being South Sandman and the other one being South Bassinger. This intersection has been dangerous for 50 years. I have lived in this area. My son totaled his vehicle in 1996 there. Just a reference in time. This is a blind spot if traveling on Anderson Road when turning left onto Southeast 32nd Street. For those of us that have been there for a long time, know to be careful, and when making a left-hand turn, for those that are new, it can be dangerous, both for the person turning and for the oncoming traffic. There has been a major increase in the traffic to Anderson Road over the past few years, making it more dangerous. David Norton." Do you want me to read the other one, or?
Well, if you have something else,
Okay.
that's fine, sir.
I got one more. I don't know what time it is here. Okay, so "To whom it may concern," from Mike Murphy at 3212 Bassinger Street. Says, "The intersection at 32nd and Anderson was coming from the south and is a little more dangerous than most because you can only see the oncoming southbound traffic at a very last couple seconds, right before it's time to turn. So I would like to have a stop sign or a dangerous intersection sign with flashing lights. If this warrants a dangerous intersection sign, then solar-powered flashing one would be great. But we do request a stop sign if all possible."
And
Thank you.
sir, and sir, if you could give those letters to the staff here?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
can have it
Yes,
as
sir.
record. And do you have any other comments?
I have none other at this time, sir.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else wanting to speak on item 5E? Okay, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. Just running through traffic data very briefly, the volumes that are carried on the respective roads. South Anderson Road is currently carrying 6,200 vehicles per day, and Southeast 32nd Street is carrying 148 per day. Posted limits on Anderson Road is 40 miles an hour, and that on 32nd Street is 25. Within the past, in 2021, there were no collisions reported at the intersection. A longer 3-year review of collisions from 2019 through the end of 2021 found that there were no collisions reported at the intersection. The intersection does meet the city's decision site distance criteria. One thing of note is that when we conducted a speed study on Anderson Road, our 50th percentile speed was running at 45 miles an hour, and the high speed that we observed during our study was 62. The location does not meet any of the warrants for considering the use of all-way stop control on Anderson and 32nd Street. Anderson Road is a section line and an arterial roadway. In the recommendation section of the report, you'll see that we quoted the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which states that traffic control devices should be placed and operated with a uniform and consistent manner. At this intersection, there are no mitigating factors such as inadequate decision site distance, which could justify the introduction of an always stop controlled intersection. The use of stop control on Anderson Road at this location will be inconsistent from a traffic control standpoint and unexpected by roadway users. The intersection meets no MUTCD criteria to justify the use of always stop control. And for these reasons, staff did not have cause to recommend approval of the request as it's presented to you. I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have on the request.
Okay. Can we have a motion concerning item 5E?
Make a motion to deny.
We have a motion to disapprove item 5E by Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second on that?
A second.
Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Okay, do we have any talk on this item?
I have a quick question. I'm looking for it in my notes here. Did you say on 32nd Street, traffic volume was 148?
Correct, that's its daily volume.
Okay.
Well, the issue is, it's 6,000 vehicles on South Anderson compared to 100 and some odd vehicles accessing. Usually the four-way stops, or in this case, a three-way stop, you would try to get that 60-40 kind of thing, where there'd be so much traffic that you just couldn't get out.
That was the purpose of my question. I heard the 6,000 vehicles, so he's asking us to stop 6,000 vehicles a day to accommodate 148. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, so.
Well, and there is a concern. South Anderson in that area has the humps, if you want to call them. They're not hills and not mountains or anything, just little humps that you really have to come up and you really have to be cautious, and you almost have to look past the little decrease to see if anything came into the decrease. But like he said, that's if you know what to look for. If you live in there, then you get used to that. You know, if this item is not approved, staff, could you put some sort of warning controls on the, especially for the southbound coming up with maybe even a caution sign of 35 or something?
What we can do and what we've typically done in recent years is we would put an advisory sign, an intersection. In this particular case, it would be a T intersection sign, and it would specify the distance ahead, and it would also identify the street. So if someone was looking for this particular road, they would have the opportunity to recognize it was coming up and slow accordingly to make the turn. But otherwise, there's not really a need, because it's got sufficient sight distance, there's not really a need to justify advising drivers to reduce speed. The speed limit on Anderson Road is posted 40. Now, you notice our speed study indicated that drivers were typically running about 5 miles or more above the speed limit, but
Well, yes, that's always been a thing. Well, that whole South Anderson Road at 40, it looks like a normal 45, but because of all the hills, it's posted at 40, and drivers, when they're not at the hills, assume it's 45 to 50. That is what happens there.
Can you give a little bit more information on sight distance? Because it seems like there's a pretty big disparity on what the neighbors are feeling versus we're saying there's 1,000 foot in each direction, we're totally fine. So I guess, what are our qualifications? Not just the speed that people should go and what our sight distance should be, but what are you all looking for that specific?
that is a great question. Okay, on page 10 of your report, there is a summary of the city's intersection sight distance criteria. This is taking from basically the city's subdivision regs. It is what we use when traffic management makes comments to planning staff when new additions are coming in. And what it does is, based on the mainline speed of the intersecting street, we will start at a location 10 feet off the edge of the road at an eye height of 3 feet 6 inches, and then we will look for a target of 4 feet 3 inches, looking to basically in either direction on the main road. And we will observe that target until it either reaches a certain distance or it disappears from view. And when it disappears from view, that would be the maximum limit of sight distance. But in this particular case, the required sight distance based on a 40-mile-an-hour road is 490 feet. That's the minimum required. And in this case, we've got in excess of 1,000 feet looking in either direction. So from our perspective, this particular intersection would pass the subdivision regulations for sight distance. Now, there's always other things that can play into it because, in more of the rural areas, you can get trees and other shrubbery and tall grass, which can grow adjacent to the road. And if it gets too badly overgrown, it can reduce sight distance. But in those cases, we will pick a location where we can see negating the fact that that would kind of look beyond the shrubbery and stuff and tall growth. Those are things that are basically fall to like property owners as far as keeping those things cut back. But in the more rural the area, the less likely you are to have people that are out there constantly trimming along the arterial system. But that's where our decision sight distance criteria comes from. And in this particular case, we did not have to move at a location closer to the road than 10 feet. We were able to make our decision sight distance measurement at the prescribed locations, which is 10 feet off the edge of the road.
Yes, sir.
I would ask that Oklahoma City Police observe this stretch of Anderson Road because it does look like it could be an overwhelming problem due to the speeders. That should help. I hated to say no, but 6,000 versus 100, we needed to, in fairness to that much traffic, but we do need some observation as far as the speeders that are going up and down Anderson. So if you could accommodate that, that would be appreciated.
Sure, I'll get with the division. I think that Santa Fe division, have them with some officers. And even our solo motorcycle unit, I can have them come out. I heard a mention of rush hour. Is that the time that it's worse, or is there a time frame I can provide for the extra patrol?
Sir, you come up to the mic, please.
And when you say rush hour, like the specific hours you think the speeding may be worse, so I can provide?
Yes, during the rush hours, it's definitely worse.
Okay.
Morning and afternoon?
Morning and afternoon, definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other talk on item 5E? We have a motion to disapprove item 5E by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Have your votes, please. Item has passed, so the item is disapproved. The motion has passed, the item is disapproved. And staff, you're also going to maybe look at signage out there to help whatever signage.
Yes, we can go and put advisory
right.
intersection signs.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we go on now to item 5F, Debbie Baxter, to establish no parking anytime restriction on the east side of South Hillcrest Drive between Southwest 93rd Street and Southwest 94th Street. Do we have someone here to speak on this item? Hello, ma'am. If I could have your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
I'm Debbie Baxter, and I live at 2429 Southwest 94th Street. I'm on that corner of 94th and South Hillcrest. The reason I started this was because on the 5th of September, a fire truck was called to 9417 South Hillcrest, and he had to park in the little cul-de-sac there and walk to the house because the vehicles at 9417 South Hillcrest, there's anywhere from 8, 12, 15 vehicles at one time just at that house that are parked on the street. And the problem is the vehicles, and I've got pictures, and Mary might have a bunch of pictures, but they're large vehicles where the wheels stick out this far from the vehicle. So the fire truck was not able to drive down South Hillcrest back down to 93rd. When he left, he had to back up. But there is a fire hydrant that is right between 94th Street on the corner and 93rd Street. As you see right here, it is my backyard to the neighbors, and they're constantly parking vehicles at the fire hydrant. There is no parking within 15 feet sign at the fire hydrant. I found is getting the signatures. I got there was only one house out of 10 or 12 that disapproved, but a lot of people don't know that I think it's 15 feet for a fire hydrant, and some of the neighbors did not even know that, but I have might even have some more pictures. I've asked them not to park at the fire hydrant, but they still park at the fire hydrant. But the problem is, is we have a lot of elderly people, and the fire truck, as this picture here on the bottom, the fire truck could not get through. So if he was coming up 93rd Street, he had a house on South Hillcrest, he could not drive through South Hillcrest. He would have to go back down to Country Club, come around and drive back up 94th. Or if there was a house on fire, he would not be able to get to the fire hydrant or drive up to that particular house, even an emergency vehicle. An ambulance can get through, I don't know, but the vehicles, the trucks, the tires stick out really far. So a lot of us even have to zigzag slowly just to try to drive through. They block everybody's driveway. They block my driveway. They take up half of my driveway. They block the mailboxes. But the problem is the emergency vehicles. And I'm just asking for a no parking on that east side of Hillcrest, no parking at any time. So emergency vehicles can get through, even like your Amazon trucks, your UPS trucks. It's even the garbage trucks, I noticed, they have to pull sideways to try to get to some of the trash cans because it is a problem there. But my most important thing is the fire hydrant and the emergency vehicles being able to get through there. I've lived there about 18 years now. So, and I know when my husband was sick at the time, I was calling them once a week. So, and there is a lot of elderly. And I know the guy at 9409 South Hillcrest, he's in a wheelchair. So we do have elderly. We're kind of all old. So that's what I'm just requesting, no parking at any time on that east side, if I could, please.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak on item 5F? So if I could have your name, address, and you'll have up to 5
My name
minutes.
is Jerry Scott. I'm at 2417 Southwest 94th Street. I'm one of those that's been affected many times trying to get down Hillcrest Drive. What Ms. Baxter has said about the emergency vehicles, I can attest to. I was in an IMSA that couldn't get through without closing the mirrors on the big trucks before they can take me to the hospital. So that's why it's the main reason. But also, we have several of us that are boat owners. And if you know anything about backing up a boat in your driveway or whatever, you normally would come in from the left side. So we come around 93rd, even though I live on 94th, and we puts us to the left so that we can back in easier without a blind spot on the right. Many times I come around, I can't get through, I have to turn around and back up if I can. I have had to close in their mirrors and my mirrors just to have inches to clear. And you can see on the pictures how close they get when they use both sides of Hillcrest Drive. So we're asking for at least one side to be open to give us a shot at coming around like we normally do. Also, the cul-de-sac, where the round part is on 94th, they park the trucks when they run out of curb space in the center, making it effectively a donut. Well, that's okay if you got a little car, but if you don't, you can't come around with 4 trucks sitting in the middle of the cul-de-sac. And it's getting to be on a regular basis, has been for the last couple of years. And I've been there 37 years, and we never had this problem until recently. So we're asking your approval for no parking at any time on that east side. And if there's any way we can get the police department to maybe take a better look. I don't know how this is enforced. I know they used to have enforcement code people that would drive around and get you for watering on the wrong day, but they're not getting anybody for parking in front of a fire hydrant. No offense. I know you guys got a lot more work to do besides worry about my boat, but I worry about it a lot. So, but anyway, we'd like your support on this if we could, please.
All right, and sir, if you could fill out one of those sheets for us, please.
Oh.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that wants to speak on item 5? Yes, ma'am. Please, come on up, and let me have your name and your address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes, ma'am.
I'm Stella Rawlings, 9409 South Hillcrest Drive. My husband is the person that Ms. Baxter mentioned, and I have had to call an ambulance or call EMS to our home for him, and they decided they needed to transport, and the ambulance could not get through until they had to go up to the home, ask somebody to move. I know they had to move at least 2 vehicles that day while he's in the back of the ambulance waiting to be transported. And in this case, he didn't die while he was sitting there, but it's often emergency enough that that few minutes can make a difference.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5F? Okay, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. In this particular case, the applicant has provided a petition meeting the Commission's policy demonstrating local support for the request. Within the required canvas area, 12 respondents were required, 10 signed in favor of the requested restriction, which would just prohibit parking on the east side of Hillcrest between Southwest 93rd and 94th Streets. And I'm happy to answer any of the questions you might have relative to the application.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5F?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve item 5F by Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner George. Any discussion?
I had a quick question. Did you mention the address that the cars belong to as 9417?
9417.
Just as an aside, they voted, like they signed the petition in a positive manner to effectively shut down the street. So, yeah. Just wanted to make sure that I had that correct. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Want to comment that I don't know the specific law, but I'm sure that blocking a fire hydrant is a city ordinance and there's a fine, and it needs to be enforced. My experience in my neighborhood with no parking anytime zones that we accomplish for very good reasons, it's going to require you folks to be the ones to report these violations. There isn't somebody that drives around in a code enforcement format or anything like that that just automatically writes tickets. So in order for this to work for you, you need to stay diligent as citizens in your neighborhood or your neighborhood association. When you see people violating this no parking anytime zone, you need to call 911 and have them come out and cite them.
Okay,
That's
call 911 or?
police.
Okay.
Yeah, anything with traffic, if I'm speaking correctly, is a police issue, not a zoning code issue, which would be on a property issue. Am I correct on that?
Yes, anytime you have a parking concern, I mean, you can call 911, and a lot of people get confused with that because they don't want to call the emergency number. The non-emergency number, it goes to the same call takers. So if you have an issue, just call 911 and report it. I'll notify Santa Fe Division, let them know we've got parking trouble. Is it all hours of the day and night that these trucks are parked? Okay, so I'll let them know it's happening. I don't know how long it takes for the signs to be installed, but listening to you, there's multiple parking violations that are occurring with or without the signs. Specifically the fire hydrant, I mean, you're correct, it's 15 feet. And that one specifically, I think the ordinance says that if that one's in violation, they can actually impound the car, so it would remove it. You know, hopefully we could just get compliance by letting somebody know with tickets, but anytime there's violations, call, because it's going to be the police department that's going to respond, and obviously, hopefully with tickets, if that's what has to be issued to try to get compliance, so.
Well, I do know one of the neighbors has.
Ma'am, if you come up to the microphone.
I do know one of the neighbors has called about the parking in the yard. They do park in the yard all the time because there's so many vehicles, so.
And that is another violation?
And nothing was done about it.
Okay, that is another violation. A citation can be written. They're not going to obviously impound the car from the yard, but if there's a, car parked in an unpaved front yard, that is a citation that they could issue.
Okay.
Is there a limit on how many cars people can have? I
do
mean,
not-
they own 7.
I do not know of a limit, and that there's like a limit that one
Okay.
individual can own.
Okay, that's why the parking's a problem.
Sure.
They park where they can, anywhere they can, on the yard, down the street, next to a fire hydrant. in the middle of the cul-de-sac.
Right.
You
And
know.
I just don't know of a limit they can own. Obviously, no matter how many cars they own, they still have to abide by the parking laws.
And parking in the middle of the round part of the
Yeah,
cul-de-sac?
it's not legal either.
Good enough.
For the same reason with the fire truck, I mean, obviously those are designed that large emergency vehicles can access them and turn around. So if there's something blocking it, that's a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other talk on item 5F? Okay, motion to approve item 5F by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner George, and your votes, please. Five F has passed with all in favor. Okay. There it is. Okay, now we go on to item 5G. Erica Jones, PECC, CEC, Inc., project engineer, changed 60-degree angle parking to 90-degree angle parking within the setback parking area on the west side of North Kentucky Avenue from approximately 177 feet south to 240 feet south of the south curb line of Linwood Boulevard. Have someone here to speak on this item? Okay. Staff, can we have input, please?
All right, you got our comments before you. In this particular application, the commission had approved 60 and 90-degree angle parking adjacent to 1900 Linwood Boulevard, and that was heard and approved by the commission back in March of 2021. They later heard an amendment in May of 2021 to change the limits of the reserved parking space for the physically disabled, which was part of the original application. In this particular case, the applicant is seeking to have the 60-degree angle parking, which was at the south end of the property, converted to 90-degree angle parking. That work has actually already been done, so this item is basically housekeeping in nature in as much as the applicant is seeking to have the 60-degree officially recognized as 90-degree, which would be by ordinance enacted by the City Council. In this particular case, the applicant has illustrated that there is an issue with a current fence line that's along the west side of Kentucky, and that fence would have to be moved back so that a minimum 5-foot wide sidewalk could be maintained adjacent to the angle parking, which is a code requirement. So upon, if this item is approved, upon verification that the parking area and the adjacent sidewalk are in compliance with all code requirements at that point in time, provided this is recommended by the commission, that item will be forwarded to the City Council for its consideration. So action on the request will be at the discretion of the commission.
Okay, could you just clarify what changed when we approved the 60? What in their mind changed it that the 60 wasn't going to work and it had to go to 90?
That would be a question you'd have to ask of the applicant.
Okay, and then you're saying that if we say it's okay to go to 90, and do you agree that 90 is okay in that area?
Yeah, the majority of the parking in the lay-by that was constructed adjacent to this particular property was built for 90-degree parking. It was only the southern end that was set up for 60-degree angle parking.
Okay, and then once it's approved, then approved by us, you'll go out there and make sure that the sidewalk is the 5 feet and that fence got moved and everything's correct, and then you'll forward it to the City Council. Is that correct?
At that time, we'll go ahead and do
Okay.
that.
Sir, did you have something you wanted to say? If so, if I could have your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Chip Fudge, 726 West Sheridan, Oklahoma City. It happens to be my property. What occurred, we did have 90-degree, or we had angled parking. When the construction company, Conley Paving, and the inspector came out, they both agreed that it would be a better situation to have 90-degree parking, and so we changed it at that point. What we didn't realize that our fence encroached on that 5 feet, and we are willing to move the fence back about 6 feet to ensure that there's the egress there for wheelchairs and pedestrians and that type of stuff.
And just for knowledge, what was the reason that they wanted to go to 90 from 60 that was approved?
I am not sure.
Okay. And you are going to move that fence, which will create that 5-foot sidewalk?
We've moved it once, and we're going to move it again.
Okay. And sir, make sure to fill out one of the forms, please. All right, thank you for the information. Anybody else? Well, no, before we do that, we need a motion. Can I have a motion concerning item 5G?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Littlefield and seconded by Commissioner Cornett.
Brett Schuline. Schuline was the.
Uline.
I didn't move that far.
Well, see,
I'm glad I'm not the only one that made a mistake today.
following right behind you. That's why I say it 100 times, so I get right in my head. All right, motion to approve item 5G by Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Cornett. Okay, any other talk on item 5G? Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Cornett. Time for votes. Item has passed. We're all in favor. We go on now to item 5H, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson and Associates, Inc. Two sub-items. One, establish 90-degree angle parking within a proposed setback parking area on the north side of Northwest 17th Street from approximately 63 feet west to 173 feet west of the west curb line of Northwestern Avenue, and two, a reserved parking space for the physically disabled within the proposed setback area on the north side of Northwest 17th Street from approximately 63 feet west to 79 feet west of the west curb line of Northwestern Avenue. Sir, we already have your info. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you for hearing this item. This is just behind the Homeland, north of 17th Street there, and there's currently just a paved area between the curb and the building that's unused for anything. And we'd like to put in perpendicular parking and one ADA space there. This would be something that's not regulated for time. That's how we're requesting it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, anybody else wanted to speak on item 5H? Okay, staff?
Okay, you got a request for 90-degree angle parking on the north side of 17th Street. The one thing that sets this application apart from most of the others that you've heard is in order to do the work that's proposed, the north curb line of 17th Street is going to be pushed out into the roadway. Now, Northwest 17th Street in this area is about 40 feet wide. They're proposing to move the north curb line by about 7 feet to the south. The resulting road is going to be 33 feet wide, which is still wider than a traditional neighborhood street, which is typically 26 feet. In this particular case, Northwest 17th Street is identified as being a neighborhood street in Plan OKC. So as far as the roadway width goes, that's not a significant concern. This particular section of 17th Street only exists between Classen and Western. To the east, it's disconnected because it does not connect into the Heritage Hills neighborhood adjacent to it. So action on the request will be at the discretion of the commission.
Okay, and the applicant will go ahead and move the curb line as far as funding? You'll go ahead and do it?
That's correct. They will pay to have the curb line adjusted.
Which then adjusts the center line?
Right.
They'll have to scratch it out and remark it?
There's sufficient space there to have a residential street, so it's 13 feet on the north side of the center line. So what we're recommending is to leave the center line where it's at, and then if there's anything that happens on the south side, maybe it'll even out or however it works, but there's sufficient space, 13 feet from the center line to the new curb location.
Which is fine for backing out
Well,
of
yeah.
a 90-degree.
Right, and in this particular case, it's indicated that the existing center line striping will be removed. It's not really necessary on a one-block section of a neighborhood-type street, and that would just clean up the roadway, but that would be fine.
So the plan is to remove the center line?
That's correct. That's what's marked on the exhibit that's
It is, but it's
before
not
you right now.
planned to restripe.
Not to
currently.
restripe, okay.
Right.
No, okay, good. All right, any other, all right, so. Input. Okay, do we have a motion for 5H
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved.
by Commissioner Schuline?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Schuline has made a motion to approve 5H. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cornett. Any discussion on 5H?
I have a question. Who is the applicant and why are these parking spots wanted?
It is Homeland, and they're just trying to provide more parking for the area. So they won't be limited to Homeland parking. Anybody can utilize them. But they're also trying to clean up that area back there. It's just kind of a no man's land.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, any other talk on 5H? Okay, we have a motion to approve 5H from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Cornett. And we're ready for a vote, and it's me. I have to do that. Item has passed with all in favor. Okay, we go on now to item 5I, Monica R. Graff, to consider a traffic signal at Traditions Lake Parkway / Oakmont Road and Northwest 150th Street. Have anybody here to speak on this item? Ma'am, if I could have your name, address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Monica Graff, 15404 Kestrel Park Court, Edmond, Oklahoma, right on the edge of Oklahoma City. We are here today, I'm representing several neighborhoods, the Lakes Traditions, Oakmont, Traditions neighborhoods, as well as the Traditions Business Park that has recently been developed in front of our neighborhood. This is not our first time asking for a traffic light at that intersection. We are very concerned about safety, given the increased accidents that are occurring, and then also the development that is taking place in the area. Since our last request, our neighborhood has been fully developed. A business park has been added to the neighborhood, including a private school. Even before this area was becoming fully developed over the past 5 years, residents were expressing concerns at the intersection of 150th and Traditions Lake Parkway, especially making left-hand turns out of the neighborhood. There is no left turn lane at that intersection. And these accidents are increasing, close calls are increasing, and between the stoplights on Santa Fe and Western, we have 6 residential neighborhoods. And those include our neighborhood of 172 homes. Across the street from us is Oakmont with 167 homes, Brenton Hills with 251 homes, Glen Eagles with 250 homes, and also Mesa Point, which has 55 homes. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, a business park has gone in front of our neighborhood. Currently, there are only 10 businesses, but there are 30 lots remaining, and typically 2 businesses are going into each lot. So we're looking at potentially seeing another 50 to 60 businesses right at the entrance of our neighborhood. But that's not all. In addition to those neighborhoods and numerous existing businesses already on Northwest 150th, several acres are now being developed at the corner of Northwest 150th and Santa Fe. A Casey's gas station was recently put in at that location. They are currently, I believe, a car wash under construction right next to Casey's, all of those with entrances and exits onto 150th. And more is being added. There's a CVS across the street. That entire land behind CVS is being developed. We're not sure what's going in there yet, whether it's retail or another residential neighborhood. The problem is further exacerbated by the entrances and exits from the Lakes Traditions and Oakmont. We are directly across from one another. So what we are witnessing and what we are experiencing, of course it being 2 lanes, east and west on each side, what you're having are cars trying to go in to both residential neighborhoods, stopping because it's like a game of chicken sometimes, because the entrances and exits are directly across from each other. So you get stopped, you're backing up traffic, and then also what's occurring, blind spots and visibility is deteriorating. You can't see when people are then trying to go around traffic, which creates even more problems. And since the study has been done, we've had 2 more accidents, one of those being a fatality. And in addition, we've had 2 teenage drivers rear-ended turning into our neighborhood. So visibility is certainly a problem. I would also mention that going east on 150th, there is a slight hill that you have to go over, and sometimes traffic is backed up and it's hard to stop quickly enough. Although we did not meet the criteria for the study for the light at the intersection, we are respectfully asking you to consider some of these mitigating circumstances I just stated. In addition, and Mr. Chai might be able to address this, but in addition to having the trackers down during that period, it seemed like they were removed before our busiest time, which is in the evening. We don't feel the traffic study criteria fully captures the dangers at this intersection. As residents, we are seeking you to be proactive, to increase our safety and hopefully prevent more accidents in the future. It's also my understanding that these projects are unfunded and will go on a special projects list. If we have to wait several years for a light, we still feel that it's beneficial given the development that is occurring in that area. Traffic will only get worse over the next several years, and once all these businesses have been added, obviously concerns are being increased. So I know that there are several people here from some of the other neighborhoods, and I believe some residents also submitted some letters. But we respectfully ask you to reconsider and help make the area safer.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak on item 5I? Okay, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. When we can, just for Ms. Graff's information, when our traffic data collectors recovered the road tubes and the counters that were placed, it had been after more than a 24-hour period, so we were able to catch both a complete morning and evening rush hour. So we've got good traffic data for the intersection. This location on 150th Street carries currently about 19,000 vehicles per day. The side street approaches, counting both north and southbound, carry about 1,500 per day. The intersection currently does not meet any of the warrants in the MUTCD for signalization. We analyzed it using 100% traffic volume conditions, and we also did an analysis using 80% conditions, which basically reduces the traffic thresholds for considering the use of signalized traffic controls. When we analyzed warrant 1, which is the 8-hour vehicle warrant, it's 100% volume conditions weren't met for any hour on the side street. When looking at the condition B, which is a reduced measure, it's still required to have at least 8 hours that meet the minimum traffic entering volumes. And under that condition, it was able to meet 5 out of the 8 hours for the side street volumes. Peak hour condition, this particular intersection meets 2 of 4 required hours. The collision history at the time we had prepared the report showed that there have been 2 at the intersection in a 12-month period. The MUTCD prescribes a minimum for consideration to meet the crash warrant of having at least 5 collisions that are considered correctable by using signalized traffic control, like a rear-end collisions, not one that's considered correctable using a signal, however, like a right angle type collision is, or an angle turning collision is also considered correctable. So should the commission consider a signal at this particular intersection? One thing that was noted in the applicant's letter is that there's an interest on the part of local area residents for a left turn lane on Northwest 150th Street to get them out of the through movement on that roadway. So action on this item would be at the discretion of the commission. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
I do have a question for the motion. So if this did pass, would you do a protected turn lane there or not?
We as staff, well, in recognition of requests from the residents, would have commission members motion to include left turn lane on 150th Street. And one of the things that you have to take into consideration, at this particular location, there's a center median on both those roads. And a lot of times, not all drivers will know exactly where to stop and to wait for the left, to make their left turn. The wider the median gets, the more questionable the location, where someone's supposed to sit and wait to make their left turn becomes. It's not as critical at this location because the medians aren't that terribly wide, but there's some locations across the city where medians can be quite wide and drivers don't know if they should turn left in front of each other or pass each other and turn left behind each other. So anyway, it's for those reasons that, if the commission's going to consider recommending a signal, this is definitely a location where you'd want to use or widen 150th Street for turn lanes.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5I?
Before we do a motion, just another point of clarification. With this, if we did vote to approve this and we went to, it's unfunded, ended up going to the next bond potentially would be the funding. Are we talking 2027 is the next bond issue that would come out?
I've not heard any set dates for the next bond yet.
Okay.
Historically, the past couple bonds, there was the 2017 bond, which is the one we're working under now, and prior to that, it was 2007. So in recent history, the bonds have been 10 years apart.
Okay.
So you could presume that maybe 2027 may be the year for another bond, but that's just me using past history to guess when the next one might come out.
And I guess with that idea of projecting future traffic growths in the area with this, would it at that time in 10 years be something that would start warranting at that point? Now, I'm not sure if you guys have actually done that analysis, but just a thought is, are we able to maybe be, as they said, proactive in trying to say, well, let's go ahead and approve this so that in 10 years when it does get to a bond issue, we already have this ready to go and we can try to mitigate it in the future?
Well, if I had a crystal ball that was able to tell me exactly what was going to happen traffic-wise, you would ordinarily predict that baseline traffic is growing at around the rate of 2% per year. Now, that would more or less apply to the arterial system and not necessarily to like the neighborhoods, because like on the south side of the road in that Oakmont addition, it's fully developed. So the number of trips coming out of that addition is unlikely to change. On the north side, there is some projected, there's some undeveloped commercial lots. They may develop into significant traffic generators. They may turn into very minor traffic generators. So it's hard to say. And like I said, the biggest thing that you can see in the report is that when looking at the reduced volumes to meet warrant 1, the 8-hour warrant for signalization, the main street meets more than 8 hours, and the side street will meet currently 5 of 8 hours. So it's getting closer, but it's not there yet. At this point in time, from a strict interpretation of the warrants based on the MUTCD, the location does not strictly meet the criteria.
Excellent answer. Thank you. Well, with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay. We have a motion to approve item 5I by Commissioner Wynn. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's by Commissioner Barnett. Do we have any talk on item 5I?
That motion includes widening the street?
Very good.
Is that
Yes, it
correct?
does.
Yeah.
Very good point. So just to clarify, the motion does include the widening of the street to include a left turn lane for both entrances. Okay? All right, so we have a motion to approve item 5I by Commissioner Wynn, seconded by Commissioner Varnell. We're ready for votes. And it's probably me. Okay, item has passed. We're all in favor. And also, ma'am, one of the things that we always bring up on these things is we don't assign where in the rack and stack things are. We don't assign money. We just don't have that. But your city council person does that. And your city council person could maybe help motivate the staff to reallocate something if they think that they could do that. So not him, your city council person. But that's just a thing that we say to everybody is if you guys think you really need it today, then your city councilman or council person needs to help the staff get motivated to change some allocations. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, we go on now to item 5J, Mike and Cheryl Etheridge, to consider a traffic signal at Lone Oak Drive and Northwest 150th Street. We have anybody here to speak on this? Oh, sir. If I could have your name and your address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Mike Etheridge, and we live at 16116 Rim Road in Edmond, but we're controlled by Oklahoma City. My wife Cheryl's here with me today. She is actually the president of the Lone Oak Ridge Homeowners Association. She has been for 4 years. She's been on the board there for 6. Lone Oak Addition consists of 8 additions. There's 832 homes in that area. Our only exits from Lone Oak Drive is 150th or 164th, so it's a whole mile. You got to go one way or the other to get on one of the roads. 150th and Lone Oak Drive on the south side is directly across from Gaillardia's north gate. Part of the problem is it's become very, very difficult to go to 150th Street and try to turn east because there's a little hill just before you come up from that direction. It's hard to see over it. Our traffic problems are early in the morning when everybody's going to work. And if you consider 832 homes, everybody has 2 or 3 cars. So you're probably looking at 2,000 vehicles probably trying to go one way or the other out of this additions, either 150th or 164th. The problem up on 164th Street, Deer Creek Elementary School's up there. So your traffic backs up a lot on those roads, and it's just a 2-lane. Now 150th is a 4-lane. It's 2 miles from Portland to MacArthur. Meridian does not run through there. So it's a 2-mile stretch. There's only one light, and that's at Remington, which is right across from a new Tabor home building project that's been in a few years now. So you have a 2-mile stretch. The biggest problem in that area, trying to get out and turn back to the east, there's no break in the flow of traffic. There's one light, it's weight censored down there, so if nobody's coming out of those areas, it never slows down. It's just a constant flow from both directions. So it makes it very difficult. What we're asking for is a light to be installed at that corner because there's lots of times with Gaillardia that they have service people, lawn crews, delivery people, UPS, FedEx, they're trying to get, that's a gated area up there and they have a guard. So they check every vehicle before they allow it in. So you can have multiple vehicles stacked up waiting to get in. So if you're trying to go out, I've seen a lot of people do this, they'll have to pull out to the middle of the road in front of traffic that's trying to turn in and hope that nothing's coming from this direction to go. So it gets a little bit dangerous. They didn't have an accident on the last report in 2021. We have had one this year. It was a 3-car accident. Fortunately, I don't think there was a lot of injury, but there are 2 more additions going in. One of them is Edge Park and another one is Edge Creek. They're both going to have entries and exits on 150th Street. So this situation is just going to continue to get a little bit worse for that whole 2-mile stretch. That's why we're asking for maybe a light at this particular intersection. It's kind of like what she was saying on theirs. I know this is an unfunded project and it will take quite a bit of time for this to occur. Y'all may know more than I do. I know they're putting a park in somewhere right there off of in between 150th and 164th to the east of us. So I don't know if that's going to have an exit or an entry on 150th or not. But We've had so many homes built. We've lived out there for 18 years, so we've been there a long time, and boy, that area has exploded with homes. It's going to continue to get much, much worse. And a lot of people, since it's a nice 4-lane, they use that even from the areas that are out west. They'll come straight across to come over to go to the Hefner, because if you try to go down from the Kilpatrick or Memorial, you run into a big mess over there trying to get on the Hefner Parkway going south. So a lot of them use 150th Street as their way in and out of those areas. Even way from the west of us, they'll cross over and come over to Portland. Thank you.
Ma'am? If you give us your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Cheryl Etheridge, 16116 Rim Road in Edmond. I just wanted to add that when I have some signed petitions here that we circulated just on Lone Oak Ridge. There's 8 total, but I only had 1 that I could easily access. We got 85 signatures out of 1 edition, and also many people were telling me that they no longer even go to 150th, that they're going to 164th to get to Hefner to go south, or even to get to the Turnpike. They go to 164th down, get off at the exit to get onto the Turnpike. They totally avoid going to 150th because they don't feel it's safe to turn left. And there was numerous people when I was gathering these signatures said that.
If you could go ahead and give it to the staff. Thank you. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5J? Okay, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. On this particular application, the intersection currently meets 2 warrants for considering signalization. It meets the 8-hour warrant and it meets the 4-hour warrant. Unlike the last application, which you just heard over at Traditions Lake Parkway, Northwest 150th Street has already been widened 4 turn lanes. So in this particular case, if the commission was going to consider a traffic signal, they would not need to look at roadway widening to accommodate it. The collision history is not such that it would suggest that a signal is required at this particular location. However, the traffic volumes entering just from the Lone Oak side are running about 2,500 per day, and on the east-west volumes on Northwest 150th Street is running just over 15,000 vehicles per day. So for those 2 reasons, and when we looked at the hourly volumes, we were able to determine that the intersection would meet the 8-hour and the 4-hour warrant with respect to the MUTCD signal warrants. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have on this particular application.
All right. Do we have a motion for 5J?
I'd make a motion to approve the application, and noting that it's nice that it already has left turn lanes installed.
Okay, motion to approve item 5J from Commissioner George, seconded by? Second by Commissioner Wynn. All right, do we have any talk on item 5J? Okay, we have a motion to approve 5J from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Wynn. Time for votes.
I can't find my live. Too many tabs. Where? I vote yes. I can't, it's not coming up.
He's on presentation mode, I think. Okay, item has passed with all in favor. Okay, we go on now to item 5K, Traffic Management Division, to consider revisions to the Alternative Speed Abatement Program. Turn this down. Well, I think it's me somehow. There we go. Okay, to the Alternative Speed Abatement Program for Oklahoma City neighborhoods and a resolution amending the program. All right.
All right.
I guess you're the traffic management.
I think I am. In this, this is the first major revision to the program since it was rolled out in 2017. I appreciate the feedback that I got from the members of the commission that sent me comments. I mean, I had, from some certain members, I had very exhaustive lists of comments and questions, which are all very good. it really shows an interest in what's being proposed and how it's being proposed to be operated. The significant differences between the last time and it was presented and this time are summarized starting on page 1. Basically, as far as roadway eligibility goes, the number of criteria for considering when a residential street or maybe a connector street in a residential area or an industrial area was eligible for participation. The criteria was reduced from 10 items to 8, and specifically what was removed were the elements relative to traffic volumes and observed speeds. Also, elements related to the existing traffic controls that might have been present on those streets. Another change from the original one is there won't be the development of a conceptual speed abatement plan as part of a necessary step. Applicants now can just go straight for an application for what they think might be desired or supported in their neighborhood. There were changes to the petitioning process, and it has now been tailored to be basically what we call feature specific. So certain items that are not as significant, like a street alert, which is just basically a pavement marking message, advising drivers to slow or something along that line. Those only require consent from people that are next to them. Other than that, they don't require broad area consent, but something like a speed hump, that petition, and I got a couple of questions on that. Residents who might petition for something like that would have to demonstrate that at least 2/3 of the people on the block affected where speed humps may go in would have to be in support of it. And then as far as where the speed humps would be located, those residents would basically have the option to say, yes, I support the application, but I would not want to see it in front of my residence. And so when looking at potential layout for speed humps or speed cushions, you would have to find best fit locations where you would get two residents across the street from each other that didn't have any issues with them being present. And then the last major change to the program is there is now the potential for the city to participate equally in funding requests. In the past, the program was just 100% user funded. In the years that we've operated thus far, there's been one neighborhood that has utilized the program, and they've had driver speed feedback signs installed, but it was entirely funded through their neighborhood, and we just assisted them with finding devices that would be acceptable, and the city took care of the installations for them. So at that, I think what I will do is I will open it up to commission discussion. Oh, one other thing before we go, last time there was just a single feature in the program, which is a driver speed feedback sign, and now there are what we call street alerts, which are basically pavement markings, speed humps, speed cushions, which are a variation of speed humps, and mini roundabouts, which are small circular islands, which are designed to fit within the confines of existing intersections without having to modify the curb returns. Now I'll be glad to entertain any questions that you might have.
Well, I think we'll let our two subcommittee people make some comments.
I'm sure I'll be ready to talk about the right item.
Yes, sir.
JB? All right, hats off to staff. And thank you. I think that this is absolutely something that's as thorough as it can be at this time, and I think it's something that actually can have a utility now. And it's been interesting for some reason or another. I don't know if it's our city council person in Ward 2 or perhaps even myself, but it's very, very interesting the number of neighborhoods that have reached out to me and to Councilman Cooper with a very high interest in participating in this program with one measure or another. In fact, there have been more than a couple that have approached me that they've got the money. They're ready to go. So it's going to be a great asset, I think, to the citizens and to the neighborhoods. And I'm really proud of the work that we've all done on it. I know we've been patient. And I know that, over time, it will evolve again and again and again as new measures are developed and ones are tested that work better than others, et cetera. So I really appreciate it. And kind of an end of a long effort, right, JB? So you have my support on the revisions without any others. Just one question, clerical, sort of probably process-oriented question. If a neighborhood or an individual citizen comes before you with a concern about, a traffic calming or cut-through issue in their neighborhood, and of course we all have to, make the respectful assumption that citizens aren't really aware of, even the ASAP program or, stop signs are really where to go with these things. What's the approach that staff will take with these citizens or neighborhood groups in offering that option of the ASAP program?
Well, I can answer that question, but I think I might just defer at this point in time to my staff member, Mary Coyne. She has been like the primary intake person for people that have sent in requests for ultimately they're going to the commission, and she gets a lot of inquiries relative to requests for speed humps and things like that, which at this point in time we don't really have to offer. Mary, if you'd like to go to one of the microphones, she can kind of give you a quick rundown on like a basic scenario in which like we get a request, and she'll tell you how she works with citizens and then processes what they've asked for and then explores options.
Excellent.
Hello, my name is Mary Coyne, and I'm with Traffic Management Division, and I do get a lot of calls in reference to our ASAP program. And when we talk to our citizens, we like to be sure that they're aware of everything has a price and it has a ramification, like the speed hump. So we really strongly encourage communications with their whole neighborhood, not just among one or two neighbors. So it's got to be an agreement. I think they're very excited about it. There's a great deal of interest. They're ready to get out and start experimenting. And with traffic management, we've done a lot of exploration by visiting Norman. The villages now, we've had conversations with them, and some of the things that they found worked and some things they found that didn't work so good. So we're really excited about going forward with this and seeing the impact it has with our citizens.
But the point that he was bringing up is, do we bring it up to people when they say, we have this problem in our neighborhood and we want stop signs? Because that was the normal thing.
Absolutely. That's our first response back, because the most common one we get is they start usually with a stop sign. We want stop signs. That's going to help us out. And we try to make them aware of they have a variety of choices. And with this program, if we can get this agreed upon, will be a great outlet for them to have multiple choices and to look at their neighborhood and reevaluate what might work best for them.
Thank you.
So that's what you were looking for.
That was what I was looking for.
Right,
Thank you very much.
Right, exactly, because it's not that we'll just get a request for one thing and we'll just stay focused on that one thing. I mean, there are a variety of options that are available to address a lot of different types of neighborhood traffic concerns. And so we won't just, if they just want A, we won't just talk A with them. We'll talk, possibilities of using A or B or C or things like that. Because
outstanding.
Most people don't realize that they've got other things that they could be considering. And it's our job to kind of walk them through the pros and cons of either one, of anything that they might be considering.
So do you have anything else, Mr. Littlefield?
I do not. I am so eager to move for approval.
Over to the other subcommittee.
Hey, I just want to, Commissioner Littlefield stated it very eloquently, but I just want to say kudos to the staff, to Mary and Stuart, for a job well done. I think it looks really good, and I'm really proud of it. I think it's something we can highly recommend, and I hope neighborhoods will embrace it and try it out.
All right, any other traffic commissioners want to have some input?
I just have a quick comment about it. I think it's a great program. And I like the fact that the city is going to pick up half the tab now. But stop signs are still free. which means, you know, if you have somebody come up, hey, we want to stop, well, maybe you guys need to pay for a speed hump instead. That's, you know, well, how much is it? Well, it's going to cost every homeowner on your block $500 or whatever. They're going to want a stop sign. So that might be something that needs to be adjusted going forward, that it's totally paid for by the city if we think that they're going to be, if it's going to help the citizens out, that a speed hump is really a lot better than a stop sign, although, you know, follow what I'm saying there?
Right. And one thing that has not been ironed out yet is the level of funding that might be coming, that the city might be setting aside for the program. It's not a line item in the budget. It may be funded, well, from any number of sources, and how well it may be funded on any given year is not yet known. So that's going to have to be probably ironed out before the item is heard by City Council, because if I was on that horseshoe discussing it, that would probably be one of the first things I'd be considering. Well, how are we going to pay for this program? How much money is going to be allocated per year? And, you know, do we just work? And right now, the way it's set up is, as far as applications come in, they would be funded on a first come, first served basis. And by first served, it would be those that can complete whatever requirements are needed and have their level of funding ready to go.
But you know how much each item cost in a general way. A speed hump is X amount of money. This is worth this. Painting some stuff costs X. And so when City Council says, all right, staff, what do you think we need to put aside to have a good program? You would know in your pocket, well, we probably want to do 10 a year. And at $5,000 each, that's $50,000. So if you, City Council, budget $50,000, on average, we'd be able to do 10 a year, and we think that's something that we get from out there that we would want to do. And then, of course, if we don't spend it, it goes back into the unused funds. And if for some reason 1 year you get 30 applications and you need more, you could go ask, or you just say we wait till next year, right? That kind of thing. So you have all that data ready to go.
Not yet, but we'll have something.
Right.
I'm sure the questions will come, because, you know, at this point in time, the city has not done any, we've not constructed any. So as far as having a solid feel for what something like this may or may not cost, those have yet to be developed, because the City Council, when they receive the item, they'll have to have some sense as to what they might need to budget for, at least for an initial year.
Well, and that's where I'm saying that the staff, when they present this, should put a pencil number right in front of them and just say, to get this going, to get a couple projects done in the first year, we recommend $40,000. And they'll do like they do, and you could, and I'm sure the staff knows how to find $40,000 that's on the floor somewhere that they could put against it. And so all City Council has to do is say, yeah, great job, let's do it. And then it's ready to go. And that's how I would recommend that the staff goes in front of City Council and just says, here's a number, give us a number, and then you see how much is used, and then like you're talking about, sir, you know, let's now fund the whole thing. You know, what happens if there's 5 projects and we have a whole bunch of money, why not spend more than half? Or help out more than half? Yes, sir.
Just a quick note on...
is your mic on, sir?
Just a quick question. On page 26, under cost, no cost to the city.
Well, that's what it was.
Well, I mean, that will be changed then?
Yeah, that's the original program,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, that's the original.
Right.
Okay.
It will change.
One other question. How much follow-up is going to be in place as these different projects go in? Because it seems like that we need to funnel our funds that are available to the projects that work. And if we're having better success with the driver feedback, then that's where we need to channel our money. If it's better, if we're getting better results with the painting on the street, then that's where we need to funnel the money. And I think that it'd be nice if we had a sliding scale to where this is the direction we would like to see this neighborhood go. We'll be willing to fund more of it, but if you want some alternative, then we'll go with you, we'll support that, but in a lesser amount.
I was about to say, because right now, the way it's being envisioned is it is a neighborhood will approach the city and they will indicate what it is that they've got a desire to see put on their streets. And really the calls, that's going to be basically their call. I mean, some people may decide, or some neighborhoods decide that they don't want to see something like that actually physically gets built in the roadway. They might have a preference to see more of the driver speed feedback signs go in or something along that line. We'll just have to see which way the program moves.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, so before we go to our motion, and do you
I
have
just have
something
one
you
more
want to say?
question, and that is just, as this program moves forward and other items become available for us to add in as appendices, I guess what is the process for, is that just us talking to staff and saying, can we look at these options to add in to the program in 2 or 3 years? Or is that something that is a formal process among this group to add in?
Everything that we've done thus far, whenever we've made any changes to the program, has always come back before the commission.
Right.
So, once the program is up and running, it'll be managed administratively. But if it's going to be subject to being amended, it'll always be brought back before this body to talk about and, explore
Yeah,
ideas.
I would say that if you say put a brick in the middle of the road,
Sure.
then we would talk about it, and if we agreed a brick is the right thing, then the staff would write it up and it would be voted on and sent to the council.
Right.
Right? Okay. All right, there are some people that might want to talk out there. Is there anybody out there that want to talk? Well, come on up, and we have your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Steve Corbett. I live at 2846 Guilford Lane. That's in West Nichols Hills. It's in Ward 2. I'm president of the Nichols Hills Suburban Neighborhood Association, which is in Ward 2. That primarily is about 350 to 400 homes, ranging from May Avenue east to Greystone, and Croydon, which is 1 block south of Britain, all the way to the north side of Grand Boulevard, on the north side of Grand Boulevard. So we've got about 350 to 400 homes, and we've kind of been waiting. We've fought issues with gated communities, which we've handled one-on-one as they come up. And now we've got the speeding issue that we've kind of been waiting to participate into the program, but the criteria was not applicable for us to participate because of the 10 requirements. And now this new proposal has reduced 2 of those, which make us eligible 100% for the program. I mean, you've had one neighborhood participate in 5 years in the program, which tells you that that program isn't working. So this proposal to amend those 2 restrictions, which is the number of cars, which you're not going to find in an interior neighborhood, and also the 5 accidents, which we probably wouldn't qualify for. So the elimination of these 2 requirements gives us 100% participation. We want to participate in the program. We've set up, we've got, the reason for the speeding in our neighborhoods is we've got we've got Christ the King grades, kindergarten through 8th grade, and then we've got the 5th and 6th grade of Belle Isle Middle School there. And so we've got 4 nice streets feeding into those schools, and you've got the speeders that the moms in their Suburbans driving to work every morning and speeding along with multiple other vehicles. So we've got about 4 streets that we need speed humps on, preferably speed humps as opposed to signal signs. Guilford is a street where a lot of people avoid May Avenue to get on Guilford, to get on Britton, so they don't have to go to the intersection of Britton and May. So we wanted to participate in the program for speed signs there. Now, we've got a committee, we've got a traffic committee consisting of about 4 to 8 people, homeowners, and 4 of the 2 are here, and the other 4, we've had 2 meetings, and so we want to participate in the program, 100%. We've got the funding, we've had a commitment of homeowners, and along with the funds out of our homeowners association budget, we're going to, we've committed up to between $17,000 and $20,000 to buy these speed humps and speed signs, and we're ready to make the application as soon as this proposal gets approved and participate in it. We don't want to wait for the funding to happen from the city. We're ready to fund our own project. We realize the city has to install it, and it becomes their property once the speed humps or speed signs, and I know there's a certain amount of maintenance involved, but we would participate. We'd even be willing to participate in partial funding of the installation of it, which the city in this proposal says they will pay for the installation. But we're willing to partially fund that to move the process on. We want to protect our kids. We've got families that we don't have curbs. So we have to walk in the streets, we have to walk our dogs in the streets, walk our kids. And it's kind of, you can't walk on a sidewalk. Well, I know that you require curbs for this program, and you will amend it for a no-curve neighborhood as long as we have proper, so they can't avoid the speed humps, and we have drainage on each side of most of those streets to where they can't avoid the speed humps. So we have approval of the money, verbal approval, and we can get the petition. I'm assuming we can probably get about 100% with an unconditional yes, which is required. Unconditional yes, a conditional yes, and then a no. We will form a petition. So bottom line is we're glad that the proposal has been submitted to lighten the requirements. And we would be the first neighborhood to fill out our application. We've already working on the application. There's probably about 6 streets, 6 of our neighborhood streets that we want addressed with speed humps and signs. And so that being said, we've...
Sir, if I could ask you to summarize, please?
I'm done.
Oh, okay.
I'm done. I didn't see a light come on
No,
for 5
no,
minutes.
that's
so,
fine. You
but,
just kept
I'm
going.
done, and I've got 2 others.
Does anybody else want to speak?
There's
Yes,
2
sir,
others.
please.
One other.
If I could have your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
My name's Jay Schellner, 2713 Elmhurst. I've moved there June of 19, 3.5 years ago. Immediately, I moved from Edmond to Nichols Hills, lived in Nichols Hills 8 years, moved over to Elmhurst, bigger lots, remodeled the house. I've never seen so many speeders in my life. If I'd known it was this way, I would not have moved there. I followed one gentleman who's at least 10 years older than me, going down my street on a Sunday morning to Christ the King. I just happened to fill up with gas on the 7-Eleven over on May, turning the corner on Dorchester to go east of my house down Elmhurst. I followed him at 53 mile an hour. He pulls into a handicap spot this way, because he came from the wrong way. I'm parked behind him. I said, you know what the speed limit is on my street? He goes, it's 45. I said, no, it's 25, and you're running 53. Oh, I'm sorry. Most people I've approached, which has just been a few, they get very angry with you. And his description of the person in the Suburban is accurate. They'll want to fight you. They don't want to go with your law. I found out I'm a cut-through street. Elmhurst is a cut-through street. We can't drive a block south and go on Wilshire like a normal human being and go around the four. That stoplight is too much for them. They save 25 seconds going down my street, and more when they go that speed. I have neighbors behind me that moved in. She's from Pennsylvania, got a little girl. She walked in our street for about 4 weeks. Too dangerous. She drives over to Nichols Hills, Kite Park, and they walk in Nichols Hills. I go out at 5:30 in the morning to walk across Penn from my house, and I walk Nichols Hills 5 miles and come back. I got to go that early, so I'm coming back before the church opens and they start coming to it. It's become a real problem. I'm going to guess, and this is guess, almost every car that goes by my house is 40 to 45 mile an hour in a 25. There's very few that drive the speed limit. Very few. I'm a deer hunter. I go out at 3:15 in the morning. 2 cars come down my street. Both of them are running 45 plus at 3:15 in the morning. It's day and night. Those flashing signs, I see people speed up in Nichols Hills to make them go from 20 to 45. That helps, doesn't it? In my opinion, speed humps are the only way to go, and they're there 24/7. We have called the police. Never once have they come out. Not one time have they ever come out on our street for a speeder in my 3.5 years. I got other neighbors down the street. They don't let their kids play in the front yard. That's nice, isn't it? You got a $2 million house and you can't have your kid play in the yard. We're called Minnie May. I found out the name of Elmhurst is Minnie May, referred to many people, or the Catholic Speedway. I don't want to be on that. I have lawn crews. I have the trash truck that doesn't pick up on our street. He goes down and picks up at the church, flies down that big blue Republic truck. He's running 50 in a trash truck in a residential street. Confronted him once. He yelled at me when I was walking. There's a Cisco semi, 18-wheeler, goes down my truck at least twice a week. I work out of my house. 18-wheeler down my street, 40, 45, 50. I think he hauls food or something down there to one of the cafeterias, so that's all I have. Any questions you guys have of me?
Sir, what's
if any of you
the
doubt
street
me,
again? What's the street?
Elmhurst. If any of you doubt me, 2713, I'll give you my number. You can come sit in my driveway
that's
for an
fine.
hour any time of the day, and you can watch it
No,
yourself.
we'll just ask the captain to get some troops out there for you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak, sir? Did you want to talk? Okay, anybody else on this item? Okay, so we need to make, oh, yes, sir.
If you guys could be sitting up here with myself and Commissioner Shuline and the whole gang here since 2014, your story is exactly why we have created this. It's exactly why. It's taken a long, long time from about 2014 to 17 to get the first variance, approved here and then off to City Council and to the gentleman in the center, where what this revision does is it makes it a workable thing. And for me to be sitting here with my colleagues and have you folks stand up and identify what your problem is and then say, we're going to use this, we've got the money to do it, we're going to do it, we're going to implement it. If you had any idea what that does to my gold bow-covered heart today, you just have no idea how good it makes me feel that what we're doing here is hopefully a good thing, the right thing, and an effective thing. Thanks. I really thank you.
Okay, so we just need to make a motion to approve the changes to the program. Is that correct, do you think?
And forward the resolution to the City Council.
Okay, so why don't we let our two subcommittee people?
I move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5K, which is to send these changes as a resolution amending the program to City Council from Commissioner Littlefield and seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Schuline. And we're ready to vote. And item has passed. All in favor? All right, good win. All right, comments from citizen? Anybody out there want to talk? Anything else? No? Now reports and other items from traffic commissioners, et cetera. So we'll start over there with Commissioner Varnell.
What a great meeting. I love when so many people come to our meetings and they actually talk to their neighbors. They get neighbors to come speak also. That's why we do this. We're here to serve. We're here to learn and make our city better, and it sounds like some of the citizens are too. Thank you.
Okay, over to Commissioner Littlefield.
Appreciate that very much.
Okay, this is the end.
Yes, I know.
Okay, all right.
I got, is it? Is Tim Johnson still here? If anybody doesn't think that this is the ugliest sweater on this horseshoe, you've got 30 days to return it for a full refund. That's
All right.
it.
Go over to Commissioner Hale.
Merry
Nothing to add, sir.
Commissioner Schuline. Commissioner Wynn.
Nothing.
Commissioner George.
I have just a kind of a housekeeping or something I've noticed. The stoplights that we approved today on 150th, and I think somebody mentioned that the oncoming, like the one off Gaillardia or off Lone Oak, those streets, those are triggered. They'll have something in the ground that triggers the light for the people coming out of the additions. Instead of, I'm assuming there'll be a timing mechanism as well. But I noticed, last Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday, about 6 o'clock, I was going west on 150th from Portland. And the light that's there, and to tell you the truth, I'm not sure when that went in, at Remington Way. I noticed it was not widened for a left-hand turn lane, which it should have been. But it took, to go that, however long it is, not very long, it took a good 40 minutes to get through that light because it was just so packed full of people. And it would let like 5 cars through. And then somebody would come in, I guess, from Remington, and I don't know if it was just always triggered. You know, if just somebody comes up, it doesn't matter how many people are going the other way, it stops them. Because it was really only letting about 5 cars through at a time. So I don't know if it was just malfunctioning that time, because I don't drive it that often. But you know, if those are triggers that no matter what's happening the other way, it stops it, I think that needs something to be modified, that it needs to be at least have a time, not any quicker than 1 minute or 1 minute and 20 or whatever, but something that, so anyway, something I've noticed, and it was unbelievable how long it took to get through that.
That's fine. I've made note of it, and then we'll turn it into our traffic operations group to have it checked. Most traffic detection is still handled using inductive loops in the city, but we are switching over as new work occurs, whether it's a new signal installation or a resurfacing project, and the city's switching over to using radar as our means of detecting vehicles. So I'll turn that in to have the location checked.
Well, plus also the side street should have like a 1 minute time delay where at least for a minute the main will go. And a lot of times it just gets off and they have to go out there and push a couple buttons and off it goes.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Cornett.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Stuart. I've had probably half a dozen questions via email, just one-off questions here and there that I've been hearing. And he's been able to handle them, go out and send his staff out and look into some issues this last couple of months. And I'm really appreciative that he's willing to step up. So thank you for that. And then Merry Christmas, everybody.
All right. And Captain, you got anything?
No, I don't have anything further.
And thanks a lot for, there's like 3 places that
Sir.
we asked you guys to get out, so.
Yeah, I'll get
thanks.
one extra patrol for you guys too.
Okay. And then Counselor?
Nothing from legal, thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much. And some housekeeping, there'll be no January meeting. They're redoing the HVAC. The day, right after the city council meeting on whatever date, it'll be closed for 2 weeks, and that's right in the middle of our time, and it just wouldn't work for us to do anything else. So we're just not gonna have a January, and hopefully February won't be as packed. Do you have anything else, staff?
I have nothing to add.
And then we're going to take a picture real quick. Is that right, Mary? We're going to take a picture before we leave. So don't leave and keep the lights on for us. Okay, any other business for the Traffic Commission? Okay, we're adjourned.